The thing that always served me well was making sure to know that I was the expert.
Today, I have with me the wonderful Claire Daniels. Claire is the owner and CEO of Trio Media, a web and performance marketing agency based in Leeds. Trio Media is a well-established agency supporting businesses across the UK with their marketing. They rank number 19 on Campaign's Best Place to Work.
Your brain can't actually tell the difference between nerves and excitement because they're so similar, so just tell your brain that you're excited.
Claire's career in marketing spans over 15 years, which is surprising because she looks very young to me, and has seen her lead global marketing teams and strategic initiatives. Claire has regularly appeared in the media and is no stranger to being interviewed on live TV and radio, so today is going to be a breeze, isn't it, Claire? Claire is now focused on scaling Trio through the integration of AI, with funding secured to build their own AI product, which I'm looking forward to hearing about, and that's currently in production. Do you ever recall a time when you've sat next to somebody, probably at a business event, where you just didn't hit it off? And can you think why? Time to Speak is a space to pause, think and talk about the power of voice and the art of human connection. Through open conversation with leaders and changemakers, we explore how voice, presence, and authentic connection shapes who we are, how we lead, and the impact we make in our work and lives. Welcome to Time to Speak. Claire Daniels, welcome to Time to Speak. Hello.
Hi, Audrey. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. That's a very impressive bio you have there. You have lots
Yeah,
of
I wasn't necessarily expecting all of that to be read out, but thank you.
Yeah, no, it's really impressive. And I'm sure the listeners have got an awful lot to learn from you in terms of business creation, but also what it means to be a leader at this time in life, and a woman as well. I know that many women out there will be interested to know how you do it so beautifully and gracefully. So I've had the pleasure of working with you, as I've mentioned, and your team. And that actually came about because we met when we sat next to each other at a business event. And we did hit it off straight away. I immediately warmed to you, which is no surprise. But do you recall that time, and can you think about why we hit it off so well?
Yeah, I do. And actually, that event I only got invited to on that day. I was taking someone else's place. So I think it was
Oh,
a
really?
very happy coincidence that we got to meet each other. And I mean, I would say on reflection, it was your warmth, Audrey, that made us get along so well. But yeah, sometimes at events like these where you sat round a table all together, you don't know who you're going to be sat with. Sometimes the conversation can be awkward or stifled. But I just think we met each other on a very mutual level of type of things we do and our approach. And I was then really interested in the work that you do and how that potentially could help members of my team with their confidence. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. We chatted all night, and then I wanted to make sure there was a way that we could work together thereafter.
Yeah, it's funny. It's you're talking about a combination of elements there, aren't you? That all come together. I'm just thinking about connection and communication and how that can become successful. And it's almost warmth is one thing, a willingness to engage is another thing, but then having something to talk about, the sort of the conversational skills that really help to sort of build connection in an instant, really. I remember, do you remember we were on a round table, but there were a row of us, all of us non-drinkers,
Yeah.
and our host was like, "Excuse me, is nobody drinking?" And we were like, "No, we don't drink," which is really unusual to have four of us sat together and not touch a drop.
Yeah, it's very unusual for me as someone that has never drank to go to an event and yeah, be sat with the other group of people who go, no, I don't drink either. Because yeah, normally I'm the odd one out, and then I get all the questions. Why don't you drink? Why, what is it? You're not drinking tonight. You're not drunk ever. Oh. So yeah, it was an interesting evening.
Yeah, it's funny that one. I still managed to dance the night away, and clear everybody from the floor with my crazy dancing. I didn't need a drum of
Oh, I
alcohol
wish
to do that.
I should have stayed for that. I had to slip out. But yeah, that would have been fun. I would have liked to have joined you. And that's the thing, you don't need to drink to have a good time because
No.
yeah, that is normally me on the dance floor all night.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that I'm stone cold sober.
No, no. Do you ever recall a time when you've sat next to somebody, probably at a business event, where you just didn't hit it off? And can you think why?
Well, do you know what? There was actually something quite recently. It's very rare because I think you don't go in with an expectation of, oh, I'm going to have such a great time. You always know at networking things, I'm going to meet lots of different types of people. But quite recently, I was sat next to someone at an event that was just winding me up a little bit. It was well, I don't want to say too much because you never know who might be
Yeah.
listening. But basically, I don't eat meat,
Oh,
and what I find, I mean, it's similar actually to the drinking thing, and whether you find this, Audrey, but like people want to try figure it out, but then they want to try and make themselves not seem so bad. I think it's when people
mm,
ask you why you don't eat meat. And if you say, oh, it's because of the animals, it's then they've got to try justify back to you what they do. And, we just went on this weird conversation about being vegetarian and, that vegetarian sausages shouldn't be called sausages and, burgers shouldn't be called burgers. But I was like, but burger isn't like, it should be called cow. If we're talking about things, actually, they should be named how they are. And we just had very differing opinions, and she kind of like wouldn't let up. And I was like, this, just stop.
yeah, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about business, for
Yeah.
example.
So yeah,
Oh,
it was a bit of a funny one, but I do get that sometimes. Like if people don't understand your life choices that are very blatant at those things, like, oh, you're not drinking, or oh, you've got the vegetarian thing next to your name. People will pick up on those and
yeah.
talk about them with you, which can be a good way of making conversation if in the right way, but other times can go, yeah, maybe not the way that you'd want them to go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mentioned there, like maybe it would have been better to just talk about business. But obviously, when I give advice to people about networking at business events, it is always to find a conversational point and
Yeah.
talk about personal stuff and listen with fascination about the individual as a human being rather than what they do. But in that instance, I probably would have diverted really quickly back to work. It's
Yeah.
tricky sometimes, isn't it? Sometimes we're just not meant to align.
Mm.
But I find that actually has been really helpful for me because it's really helped me pick um, uh, yeah, choose my tribe and pick the people I actually want to work with. And I do find I get the most out of those relationships when people do feel aligned and get on really well.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, if you were talking business, you can talk business all day, as long as you're inquisitive and you ask
Mm.
questions, even if you thought this sector's a bit boring or I don't know much about it or anything
Mm.
like that. I think it is easy to talk business, but it's where, yeah, the relationships can flourish if you're able to find that kind of personal common ground as you and I did, or it kind of go the other way if then people start diving into something more personal that you're not comfortable with. Whereas, yeah, business is almost the easy topic to talk about as long as you know how to converse with someone and that actually you should ask questions like you're interested even if you're not.
Yeah.
But that's the way of the world a little bit, making conversation with people is being able to think of, well, what's the next question that I'm going to ask about something they've just said.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, just want to sort of change the subject really and move on to something else because when I was talking about this podcast with you and I said I'd really like you to come on, I said I can send you the questions in advance. We can have a chat if you want. And incidentally, we didn't have the pre-chat. We've just met because you said, you know what, I'm an open book. You can ask me anything really, which I think is wonderful. And I would agree. You are an open book. It's really easy to get on with you and build rapport with you because you are just so open, which is just lovely.
Thank you.
Um, and I'm curious to know, what does showing up as your authentic self mean to you?
Good question. I think it's just about being who you are, warts and all. there's definitely a version of myself that I aim to portray. You know, the person who I am at home with my husband, where you're being silly or whatever, you know, you're not necessarily that person.
Yeah.
But it's about being true to yourself. I don't really take well to fakeness. You know, I really like people that are authentic, that say what they mean, and that treat people the way that they think they should genuinely treat them. And, you know, for me, things like looking after my team and being compassionate to them and caring to them is something that's really important to me. So even if every business book in the world said you should do something otherwise, I would do it the way that I felt made sense to me. Um, so I think it's about that. I mean, ultimately, I am a very honest person, and that's just in my personality. So it then becomes a point you can't help it. You know, if I was a different star sign or something like that, maybe it would be different. But who I am is I've just always been honest. So I kind of have no choice but to show up as myself. And the benefit of that is I think it's worked really well for me.
Yeah, I think it has too. I honestly, I loved working at your office because all the team were just so happy. I mean, you can't be happy every day. And obviously, they were being very welcoming towards me, but you get a sense of a really healthy culture at your
Mhm.
office, and everybody working together for a greater good, and all focused on an end cause, which is really fantastic. I have a question here in my notes, which is actually about your business and you being the face of it and the CEO of Trio Media. So that makes you obviously a very successful businesswoman. It's a very successful business. Do you think, this is important to me, by the way, so this is a big question. Do you think the way that you feel, look, behave, sound contributes to that success?
I would say yes. And first of all, thank you for that. Um, but absolutely, you know, the way you show up does then dictate the way you feel and the way you act and stuff like that. I mean, I remember earlier in my career, I mean, there's been times when I've gone for job interviews when I was younger, and I wear glasses for driving. So I wore the glasses in the interview because I just thought, oh, they'll take me more seriously, you know, young female, blonde hair, like maybe they'll take me a bit more seriously if I wear glasses. Like it genuinely had that like perception. And I remember kind of one new job I got, I was like, right, I'm going to make the move. I'm wearing stilettos every day. And for 3 years, I only wore stilettos to that job. I was like, they'll take me seriously if I'm in high heels all the time. Um, but I think that's more a true reflection of kind of how we feel. And, you know, that was maybe a reflection of insecurities of myself, whilst I would never be one to say that I have really felt much imposter syndrome. There clearly probably was a bit of that if I felt I need people to take me more seriously by the way I dress, or the way I show up and stuff like that. But today it really comes down to making sure that you kind of look and feel right for what it is that you're doing. And, you know, I always want to feel professional and portray that. So, like I say, even if I'm showing up as my authentic self, I'm not necessarily going to be the silly person I am at home. Although we are going on our Christmas do next weekend, and I will be doing karaoke to. Well, my karaoke, if I do it, is rapping. So I've been preparing some hip hop raps for the team, so they do get to see that from time to time.
Oh, that sounds really cool. I know what you mean about degrees.
Hmm.
I talk about this quite a lot in my training, actually. Um, Choosing the way you show up in a certain context is not being inauthentic. It's just choosing the way you want to show up in that space and time, isn't it? Which is different to trying to be somebody you're not in that space of
Absolutely.
time. They're two very different things, aren't they?
Yes.
So where you might wear the gym kit to go to the gym because it's right for that space, the same as you might wear the suit to go to a business meeting because it's right for that time and space. And I totally agree with you. There is so much playfulness to you as well, Claire. I see it with your team as well, which is really lovely. And I've always thought that the best outcomes come from including play and fun and creativity in the work that you do, no matter how serious it is. And I think that you definitely have those ingredients too, even in the most sort of formal contexts. Would you say that?
Yeah, I would. And on that note, so we are just about to present our 3-year strategy for 2026 through to 2029. And the theme of that strategy is joy. So we wanted to just really hone in on there's no point doing any of this if we're not enjoying it. And, it doesn't mean that we have to be having fun all the time or being silly or playing games. But it's going, well, I get joy out the satisfaction of doing a really good job. And, I get joy from the warmth of that collaboration with my team or whatever those things are. And, people get joy out of being organized. And we have shout outs in the team. And when you hear the nice words that someone in the team's left for you, that makes you feel good inside. So it's all of that together, and also a reflection of that for our clients, that we want them to feel like they're having a really happy time working with us, and that actually maybe we can offer a bit of a break from their normal kind of corporate working day if they want to come and get involved in something we're doing. So yeah, we're really just doubling down on that now and just saying, actually, we're going to make that what it's all about. And there's loads more to this, but yeah, for now that's all I can say. But yeah, I'm really excited about presenting it to the team with that joy theme.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. And I think in these times as well, when we can feel that business is quite precarious, it's a really important mindset to have if you want to take your team with you and you want to keep them motivated and excited about what they're doing. As a leader, it's really important you convey that you want it to be fun and enjoyable for everyone involved. That's brilliant.
Absolutely.
Well, hopefully I'll get some insight into that at some point. It'd be really nice to see it.
Yeah.
So you must do quite a bit of public speaking.
Yeah.
How do you feel
I'd
about
say
it?
I'd actually quite like to do more. But yes, I do, and I have done.
Yeah. How do you feel about it?
I feel fine. So I don't know how or why. I don't know if it's because I did drama at school and that prepared me for the stage. I don't know. I've always actually felt quite comfortable being the center of attention. And there's me being honest, but yeah, it's just I've always felt comfortable with it, and I'm very much a feel the fear and do it anyway. So if there are ever times where I feel nervous, um, just try to talk myself around. I remember reading an article once that said your brain can't actually tell the difference between nerves and excitement because they're so similar. So just tell your brain that you're excited.
Yeah.
So I try apply that a lot of the time. But yeah, I mean, I've done live TV interviews through to standing up and speaking in front of a lot of people. And I just think you have to take it in your stride.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's funny what you say about the nerves and excitement. That's something we talked about a lot in my industry in the performing arts. You never said to anybody, "Oh, do you feel nervous?" You always said, "Are you excited?" Because then it gave people, the right set of tools and the right mindset to go on that stage and then just enjoy it and live the excitement rather than feel the nerves. You're absolutely right about that. Um, so you have to be honest in this answer, by the way,
Yeah.
when I ask you this question, even though you know what I'm like about preparation. Do you prepare before you speak in public?
Well, what I would say is I prepare more now after your help, Audrey. um, so obviously there's a degree of preparation. Like if you're doing a talk with slides or something like that, like you're going to prepare the slides. But I was always one where I thought, I know this, I can just wing it. And that very much was my strategy of almost making myself feel confident was you do know this, you're fine. You don't need to worry about preparing. And then for anyone listening, Audrey came into my business for 2 days, and I kind of thought I don't need help, but I want your help for members of my team in making them more confident in public speaking. And you were talking about the preparation. And I said, well, what about for someone like me? You know, I just wing it, I'm fine. And you said, well, you might be fine without preparation, but think how much better it could be if you did prepare. So that really stuck with me. And, you know, I'm very big on making sure that I set the right example for the team. So there has been things that we have done since where we've applied your learnings and your teachings around preparation. And I definitely prepared a lot more. The one thing I would say on that is I got to the point where I'd followed all the guidance. I was fully prepped. I knew exactly what I was saying. And it was maybe making me feel a bit more nervous. And this is my bit where it goes back to how I would have been before, is when you prepare so much, you get hung up on remembering to say what you meant to
Yeah.
say. So once I'd done all that prep and I was feeling nervous, I said to myself, still just remember you do know this. So, like, you've done all that preparation, but it's fine. You know this. Don't worry about remembering what to say now because you know it. You know, so then the kind of final 24 hours before, I was just like, just stop looking. Like, you know this, it's
Yeah.
all good. And we put on actually our own event for the first time, and I spoke at that, and a member of my team spoke who probably before your training, Audrey, I wouldn't have thought they would have been able to do that, and they did phenomenally. So it was very good. But yeah, I'm definitely in the camp of preparing more now, and preparing differently to kind of
Mm.
how I would have done before. Um, but just if I can add, because sorry that's already a long answer, but when I have done, because you said about sending me the questions, and I was like, oh, I don't need to see them. And I've done a few things on TV, whereas sometimes live TV interview, they're never going to prep you. So you
Mm.
have to be okay with, like, they could ask me anything, and on the spot, I've got to think of it. So I'd say I kind of become good in that respect. But also, quite a few years ago, I was going to be interviewed live on Sky News on the back of a cyberbullying report that the company I worked at the time had released. So I made sure to completely memorize as many stats from that report as I could, because I would not have it to reference. And I wanted to make sure that I could say, oh, well, 37% of whatever has seen this. So I think it's important in those instances when you've got a point you absolutely have to get
Yeah.
across, that you need to be prepared to make sure that you can say it and you remember it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And your answer's not too long at all. I love it. I love it all. I think it's brilliant. Some golden nuggets in there as well. So I would definitely recommend doing exactly what you did, which is 24 hours before, as long as you've prepared really well. Metaphorically, you should be able to screw up that preparation, all of your notes, everything, throw it to the back of your brain,
Yeah.
and then just get on with it. Especially if you're in business and you're an expert, you have to trust that you do know what you're talking about. And that idea of the preparation, do you remember me saying it's actually about stripping away the fluff
Mhm.
and ensuring that you only have the important stuff there so that message can land clearly with the listener, because the listener doesn't always know what you're going to talk about, and they don't have the privilege of seeing a script or some notes afterwards usually. And so it's really important that you as the expert strips away all of the conversational bits and pieces which aren't required. Some bits are. It's really nice to have a little bit of conversation in there. But really make sure that the important detail is in there. So you did exactly the right thing. You prepared and then you thought, no, I've done enough now, put it away. And it's a great thing if speakers can be brave enough to just put it to one side and don't look over those notes again and just trust, which is a wonderful, I'm so pleased that you did that. I'm absolutely delighted. That's really great. And another great tip you gave there was that memorizing those important pieces of data and those facts. Quite often I'll see speakers presenting with slides, which obviously you couldn't do while you were doing some
No.
TV work, but they're presenting from a slide and they're actually reading the data from the slide and then debunking their expertise in a way, sort of making it look like they don't really know what they're talking about at the time when they actually do, but the nerves got in the way and diverted their eyes to read from a slide just for a little bit of a comfort blanket, when really it's not necessary. You can memorize, you can learn those details and be seen as the expert, which you clearly did, which is absolutely fantastic. Well done. 10 out of 10, Claire Daniels. 10 out of 10.
Excited.
Sorry, say that again?
A-star student.
A star. You definitely are an A
Mm.
star. Another question I have for you. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I'm not sure what you're going to say to this one. And I hope, yeah, I think you're going to have an interesting answer. Have you ever been lost for words?
Um, I my gut reaction is to say no, um, but I can sometimes struggle to find the right words when providing criticism style feedback. So that's the only time where I maybe am not as forthcoming with my words. If in the moment I'm trying to think, I know this isn't right, but I don't
Yeah.
know the right thing to say to someone. So I then maybe it's whether it's more biting my tongue than being lost for words. But I'd say those are the only moments where I'm not forthcoming with what I have to say because I'm still in my head trying to figure out what is it that I want to say in this moment.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? So have you ever sort of walked away and thought, God, I wish I'd said that?
Yeah.
I've done it loads in the past.
All the time. I read an interesting thing that said, so when you're under pressure, you go into fight or flight.
Mm.
And so during an argument, you actually become less intelligent because the blood runs out of your brain into your hands and feet. So you are literally prepared to fight or to
Mm.
flight.
Mm.
And that is why that happens, that upon
Mm.
reflection you go, why didn't I say that? But at the time your brain literally couldn't do it, but it's
Mm.
because it was preparing you for that reaction. And I thought that
Yeah.
was really interesting because I think surely that happens to everyone. I'm not a massive overthinker generally, but yeah, there's always things where you go, oh, I've only had said it like that or worded it like that. And actually just recently I was giving um a friend some advice on kind of a HR people situation in the business. And I was like, well, just say this. And they're like, oh, well, it sounds so good. You saying that I should say that. Why don't I think to say it? I was like, yeah, but also if I was in the moment with you, I wouldn't have said that either.
Yeah.
I think it's so much easier to think of the right things to say when it's not a high stress situation.
Yeah. I mean, I think, to be honest with you, I think you probably react to a lesser degree in terms of fight or flight because you're quite composed and quite confident. There are obviously a lot of speakers who are speaking and they don't really want to speak. So the bodily reaction that you just talked about, that fight or flight, blood to the hands and feet reaction, is what they're getting when they have to stand up and do a presentation in front of their own team or stand on a stage and give a speech. And I mean, some people are even getting it standing up in the living room in front of their family to say something, and it can be so debilitating. Having done my training, though, Claire, I think you might know one way to combat that fight or flight response. What would it be?
To breathe, do the
Yeah.
breathing and yeah, four in and four out. But
Yeah.
yeah, the breathe. I mean, I think certain members of my team have definitely found that useful. Just knowing actually to just breathe in that moment and a real stomach breath, so people can't see your chest
Mm.
rising and it look like you're panicking, but actually really deep breaths that just bring you back down.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. Yeah. So I recommend that all of the time because it slows everything down. So it
Mm,
actually slows the speed of that blood going to the hands and feet as well because you're
yeah.
slowing everything down internally. And obviously you're oxygenating the brain. So you're giving your mind a better chance of finding the words you really want to say at that point. So yeah, it's really difficult to find your breath in those intense moments. But if you can do it, that's definitely the way forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so rather than being lost for words, have you ever been in a situation where you've said something you regret?
Yes, definitely. Do you know, I was telling the story that comes to mind, and it's actually just really embarrassing. I was telling someone this recently was I it was about 8 years ago, I think. I went for an interview at Microsoft, and I'd been at the company I was in for quite a while and doing very well successfully there. Went for this interview at Microsoft, and I think it was on the way out of the interview. So we'd done the interview, and the hiring manager was seeing me out. We went down in the lift, and I cannot remember the context of why I said this, but I said to them, "Oh, don't worry, I back myself." And I was just like, "Oh, just like proper," even though I do back myself. I cringed at the time straight after, and I still cringe now 8 years later. I didn't get the job. um, and yeah, when you're just like, why did those words come out of my mouth? I mean, that's the problem with being honest, is sometimes words come out of your mouth that later you might regret.
Do you recall the response though when you did say it?
No,
Oh.
it's like I must have blacked out. Like I've no idea what they said after. Like, say, why did I say it? I don't know. But yeah, it just makes me cringe.
Oh, it's so funny, isn't it? That sometimes those things come back to haunt us, usually at nighttime when it's really dark. And then you're thinking about it, even though it's years later, it's still a thing that you're thinking about. It doesn't sound too embarrassing to me though, and ultimately it's the truth. So
Yeah.
you know, it's not so bad. I would love to go back and record the response from the other person though, just to see how it landed. It probably wasn't half as bad as you're thinking.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter anyway because I am where I am now. But yeah, it's a funny one.
I've got one last question for you. If you had one piece of advice to give a woman, a young, beautiful woman like yourself in business, when it comes to speaking and communication, what would it be?
So I would say the thing that always served me well was making sure to know that I was the expert. It shouldn't be about preparing lines and making sure you memorize something. It's about having the faith and belief in yourself.
Mm,
If you're on that stage, in that meeting, delivering that piece, you're there for a reason. And so don't doubt yourself and just know that you know it. And yeah, as long as you show up as yourself, no one knows what you're meant to be saying
yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
And you'll do a great job. And also one of the things I do think's worth saying is what women can be really bad at is kind of rewarding ourselves when we do a good job. So if you're in a situation where it maybe was really nerve-wracking beforehand, but you did it anyway, is to remind yourself and give yourself the pat on the back.
Mhm.
I did that and I've achieved something, and so I can do it again.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I think sometimes we can get held back in our negative thoughts around it. Whereas if we tell ourselves, I just smashed that. And
Yeah.
that's something I really believe in and do well for myself, is I have a very positive internal voice when it comes to work. I will say to myself, yeah, you just nailed that. I back myself. um, but it served me well in being confident, and kind of feeding that internally for me in making sure I can show up confidently.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant advice. Thank you. I actually just want to pick up on that because something that I learned really early on when it came to me speaking and training people to speak is that actually we need to work with the person first. So I can teach you a load of things about speaking and presentation skills, but actually what we've got to think about as individuals is how do we speak to ourselves internally? Because that changes everything. If we can get that right, we are actually capable of doing so much more. So we're not limiting ourselves at all. And we can be more brave to go out and do exactly what we intend to do without feeling like we're holding ourselves back. So I think you're absolutely right about that. And I'm so happy for you that you do have that positive internal voice. You absolutely deserve to have it. And like you say, so do many other people in business, not just women, but we all deserve to speak to ourselves well and celebrate when we get up there and just do it. Even if it's not perfect, just getting on and doing it is absolutely the right thing to do. So
Yeah,
that's brilliant advice. Thank you very much, Claire.
you're welcome.
Claire Daniels, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me. I hope
Thank you
you've
for having
enjoyed it
me.
today.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, that was absolutely wonderful talking to Claire. Isn't she fantastic? And some brilliant tips there. She's obviously a very confident speaker, which is a pleasure for me to see. Um, she astounds me in many ways because she's always got time to give to others, time to actually just have a discussion like that and be really human, even though she's got 1,000 things running around in her brain and she's got a business to run and a team to look after and a lovely husband, Paddy, as well. Yeah, just like all of us with so many things going on. But Claire never forgets to take the time and spend the time with people and help them to feel valued and in her thoughts, which is just absolutely wonderful. So thank you very much to Claire Daniels, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Time to Speak. If you'd like to listen to more, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and the podcast page on my website, audriewoodhouse.com. This podcast is brought to you by Audrie Woodhouse Honestly Speaking Limited, and it is an Actors Actuality production. See you soon.